episode of the Fortress of Philitude. In today's episode, I want to do a comparison of WizKid's new Warlock tiles with other popular 3D tile systems. Now, when these first came out, or actually when they were first advertised, I was interested to know how compatible these were with other tile systems. Now, the box itself says that these are compatible with OpenLock and DragonLock, and I was also curious if maybe they might be compatible or how closely they might be compatible with Dwarven Forge tiles. I scoured the internet, scoured YouTube. Nobody had done a video showing a comparison between the different tile systems. Just a lot of reviews of the Warlock tiles themselves. So I decided to do that for you to help out the community. And let's go take a look and we'll see just how compatible these tiles really are. So here you see the different tiles, different sizes. We've got the Dwarven Forge, we've got the DragonLock, we have the OpenLock, and we have the Warlock tiles. Now at first glance you can probably tell some of these are a different size from one another. Some of them are a little closer. The Dwarven Forge and the DragonLock obviously are meant to be compatible. Dwarven Forge being the first tiles that anyone produced. They kind of set the standard that DragonLock followed, but you can tell there's a difference in height on the bases. As you can see, the Dwarven Forge is a little bit taller. Now I know there's an add-on base for the DragonLock to make them magnetic that I actually have not printed out, so they may actually raise the height of those a little bit, I'm not sure. But they're pretty close. And you notice they do the same thing with the wall where they cover up half of the grid, half of the squares, which for years drove me nuts and what's kind of kept me from these for a long time because I hated the idea of losing part of that grid in play. But I've kind of got past that and realized I don't always have to worry about the grid. And if I want to, I can set up my dungeon tiles in pretty much any size I want to. I don't have to conform to a map that says a room has to be 20 by 20 squares. I mean, if I want to fudge the dimensions a little bit to make it work better for my miniatures, I can do that. Or I can ignore the grid altogether. So this is OpenLock. This is another type of 3D printed tile, very popular. Open source. As you can see, it is bigger than the DragonLock and the Dwarven Forge. And it uses a clip-on system where the walls actually clip to the side of the floor tiles. Allows you a lot more versatility in your builds and allows you to use the full grid. The only problem is they're not then compatible. You can see there's an offset. Yeah, not real compatible there. Now Warlock tiles from WizKids, obviously they kind of went with the same idea as the OpenLock, where they have the walls that kind of clip onto the sides of the floor pieces instead of on top. So you keep the whole grid. And, it's kind of a shame that they say that these are compatible with DragonLock. Just because they can lock them together doesn't necessarily mean they're compatible because they don't line up. Now you can use these, there's no reason you can't build a larger dungeon or a series of rooms and corridors and just transition from one set to the other. That's not a big deal. But if you want true compatibility, if you really want these guys to work together, to clip together and be more seamless, the Warlock tiles are really only going to really be compatible with the OpenLock tiles. So if I was just getting into the hobby, I was just getting into tiles, and I was going to 3D print, I'd probably have to choose the OpenLock. There's a lot of variety out there, a lot of user-made files, a lot of free sets. Even the ones you have to buy are usually pretty cheap, very affordable. And if I was going to do 3D printing and do stuff that was going to be compatible with Warlock, then I would definitely go with OpenLock. Unfortunately for me, I have printed a crap ton of the DragonLock tiles, which I love. They're great quality. There's a lot of variety. They've come out really good on the printer. And just because of that, there's no way I'm going to go and then print a million of these too. These are nice. If I ever wanted that extra variety, I could see printing a small set of these just to do a different color scheme, to have a different style dungeon, but I don't really need to do that. Between the Warlock tiles and DragonLock, and even the few Dwarven Forge tiles that I have, I've got enough variety that I can do different styles of dungeon, especially when you throw different types of terrain in there. While I'm doing this comparison, I think it's important to kind of point out too, the actual sizes on these. Another thing that's always kind of bugged me about the Dwarven Forge is they're not true scale. They're off a little bit. I don't know if that has to do with shrinkage because of the plastic they use now, which it's still very sturdy. I mean, you can't really bend this stuff. It's not going to break. Good quality, still great sculpts, and the fact that you can buy these now unpainted and paint them yourself it just means they're that much cheaper too. Dwarven Forge was always sort of the the Rolls Royce or the Cadillac of dungeon tiles, despite just being the first and only kid on the block, so to speak. They've always been great quality. So, I mean, they're more affordable now for most gamers. I know when I was gaming and these first came out, there was no way I could buy these, at least not in any significant numbers. I just couldn't afford it. They are much more affordable now, and you still have great, great, great top-of-the-line quality. Between the Dwarven Forge and the DragonLock, they're not 100% compatible, but they're pretty close. Much easier to use these guys together, especially if you wanted to make a bigger room and you didn't have enough tiles of one or the other. You could combine them and kind of make it work. Otherwise, if you're just building a larger group of rooms and corridors and you want them to be more similar to one another, you want to go with those guys. But if you're going to go and invest money in the WizKids tiles and you want to expand your own collection through 3D printing or maybe buying some sets on Etsy or other websites, then you're probably going to want to look at OpenLock. And yeah, you can see these are more of a true scale, really. And even the DragonLock is not exactly scale. It's about 1/8 of an inch off there. Oops, I hope if I line that up right. Now it's about a 1/16 off, which I think is about the same on the about the same on the Dwarven Forge. So it's kind of odd. I'm sure they modeled these off of these as close as they could to make them compatible. And there's obviously some degree of shrinkage at play. I don't have any of the resin sets from the original Dwarven Forge tiles. I'd be kind of curious to see what size they are, but I think I've seen some videos before that shows that they're also still a little bit smaller. I think they're still the same scale, which is just a little bit under that true inch scale. But hey, they're still great. I would highly recommend these if you want high quality, great sculpts, something more old school, especially if you've been printing DragonLock or you've bought some DragonLock sets. They're going to be compatible with one another. OpenLock and Warlock, those are the ones that are going to go together. So when it comes to true compatibility, that's the bottom line. It's really Warlock's really only compatible with OpenLock, not DragonLock. But hey, with everything that's on the market nowadays, you've got a lot of choices, a lot of variety. And if you're fortunate enough to be able to kind of invest or spend a little bit of money on any or all of these, you've got a lot to choose from. If someone had told 13-year-old Phil that someday he would have these types of materials and these types of resources to play his Dungeons and Dragons games, I would not have believed you. So I think in some ways we're in a golden age of gaming. So there you have it. WizKids, Warlock Tiles, OpenLock, compatible. Not compatible with these other sets, but hey, they're close. You're going to enjoy them. If you have them, if you buy these different sets, you're still going to get a lot of use out of them. There's nothing bad about any of them. There's not a criticism on any of the tiles. They're all great. It's just when it comes to compatibility, yeah, there's a little bit the claim that these are compatible with the other sets is a little bit disingenuous, just a little bit. And there you have it. Hopefully this helps you make some decisions, makes you a little more knowledgeable. And if you have any comments, please leave them below. If you would be very nice, you can like the video, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your family, and we'll see you next time on the Fortress of Philitude.